Want as ek droom, voel ek die oomblik. As ek droom is als vergete. Want as ek droom, kan ek weer staan. Net as ek droom. Net as ek droom. Oh, Diana, please, sit down. How is your mother? Oh, well, that's good. Oh, yes, Marilla is a very generous woman. She said we could have fruitcake and cherry preserves for tea. But it isn't good manners to tell your company what you're going to give them to eat. So I won't tell you what she said we could have to drink. Now, please, help yourself, Diana. Oh, I'm really glad you like it. Take as much as you want. Marilla is a famous cook. Oh, she's trying to teach me to cook, but I assure you, Diana, it is uphill work. There's so little scope for imagination in cookery. You just have to go by the rules. The last time I made a cake, well, I forgot to put the flour in. I was thinking the loveliest story about you and me, Diana. Oh, I thought you were desperately ill with smallpox and everybody deserted you. But I went boldly to your bedside and nursed you back to life. And then I took the smallpox and died. And I was buried under those poplar trees in the graveyard. And you planted a rose bush by my grave and watered it with your tears. Oh, it was such a pathetic tale, Diana. The tears just rained down over my cheeks while I mixed the cake. But I forgot the flour and the cake was a dismal failure. Marilla was very cross and I don't wonder. I'm a great trial to her. Last week, she was terribly mortified about the pudding sauce. See, we had plum pudding for dinner on Tuesday, and there was half the pudding and a pitcher full of sauce left over. Marilla said there was enough for another dinner and told me to set it on the pantry shelf and, well, cover it. No, I meant to cover it just as much as could be, Diana. But while I carried it in, I was imagining I was a nun, taking the veil to bury a broken heart in cloistered seclusion. And I forgot all about covering the pudding sauce. I thought of it the next morning and ran to the pantry. Oh, Diana, fancy if you can my extreme horror at finding a mouse had drowned in that pudding sauce. I lifted the mouse out with a spoon and threw it out in the yard, and then I washed the spoon in 3 waters. Marilla was out milking, and I fully intended to ask her when she came in if I'd give the sauce to the pigs. But when she did come in, I was imagining I was a frost fairy. So I never thought about the pudding sauce again. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Chester Ross from Spencervale came here that morning. Oh, they're very stylish people, you know, especially Mrs. Chester Ross. When Marilla called me in, dinner was all ready and everybody was at the table. I tried to be as polite and dignified as I could be, for I wanted Mrs. Chester Ross to think I was a ladylike little girl, even if I wasn't pretty. Everything went right until I saw Marilla coming with a plum pudding in one hand and the pitcher full of sauce warmed up in the other. Oh, Diana, that was a terrible moment. I remembered everything, just stood up in my place and shrieked out, "Oh, Marilla, you mustn't use that pudding sauce, a mouse had drowned it. I forgot to tell you before." Oh, Diana, I shall never forget that awful moment if I live to be 100. Mrs. Chester Ross just looked at me. She's such a perfect housekeeper, and fancy what she must have thought of us. Marilla turned red as fire. Oh, Diana. Oh, Diana. If all the world were paper, Well, I would fold up my gran and take her everywhere I go. I would laminate my baby sister in bubble wrap and lay her to sleep in unbound fairy tale book pages. And should she get scared, rip every fear, shred every scream, tear every tear. If all the world were paper, I would rebind my grandfather, smooth out the dark ears to all his stories, place his younger days in a zoetrope, and flush the harrowing chapters down an ink-gurgling well. If all the world were paper, kind deeds would be post-it notes that stick to the doer in ever-growing trails, so we would always remember. Friends would come with perforated lines, so you could keep their best bits with you at all times. If all the world were paper, Christmas wrapping foil and birthday cards would follow you to school. If all the world were paper, dreams would be braille, so we could read them whilst we sleep. And nightmares would be shopping lists, because shopping lists are so easy to forget. If all the world were paper, arguments would rustle before they started and could be put right with a little tape. If all the world were paper, we could paperclip families together, draw smiles on all the sad faces, cover our homes in Tipex, and start all over again. All the world is not paper, but whilst we can imagine it were, we can recycle the rough times knowing we will never fold.